Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hello. I'm so still working on the references list right at the last second. So let's talk about Hitler and the night of the hidden order. But before we do that, let's say hello to some people. Adric is here. He's first. He says, it's on. Nina is here. Hi with the peace sign. Hi, Auntie. Adric says, let's hear it for the dancing Maggies. Adrian says, let's go. And those of you watching from the cloud, hello to you as well. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. What is scrolling across the bottom is a third of the reference list. So I think what I will do is after the live, I will put it in the description of the live, the entirety of the list. We will try that. I was trying to add a second banner. Let's see if it'll do it. Well, we'll try it later. We'll just try it another time. It's okay. It's okay. You guys will have the reference list. It is huge for this one. But if we're going to talk about Hitler and we're going to talk about these things, we have to show the reference list, right? Like, we can't just make up stuff about atrocities and things that have happened, especially stuff that has to do with the religions, politics, geopolitics, so many things that we have to show our work, right? Now, I have a cold, possibly the flu. I don't know what's going on. So I will be drinking a lot of tea and I may have cough drops. And hopefully I don't have a coughing fit. Okay. History is written by the victors, right? But ritual is in the blood. Okay. So they say Hitler was this madman. He was a failed artist and then became a tyrant who plunged the world into chaos. But what if that story is a distraction from the truth? What if he was never rogue? What if he was never self-made, but he was chosen? I'm just saying, what if? What if? Not by voters, but by the bloodline elitists. What if he was ritually placed to carry out the most devastating sacrifice in the modern era? So let's talk about it, okay? Long before kings ruled thrones, ancient humans divided by blood, okay? That's archaeological evidence. 3 great bloodlines emerged. Now, the Abrahamics denote these bloodlines by assigning them to the flood survivors' sons, just as a way to denote it. Shem, he's the keepers of the spiritual memory. And those people are actually rooted in Mesopotamia and Kush, not where we were told. Ham, being the guardians of mysticism, creativity, and resilience, came out of Africa. And Japheth, the cold climate colonizers, the hybrid Neanderthals, right? The hybrid Neanderthals are the Gothic lineages. So I will reference you back to the Gothic shows that I have done. They were ruthless, strategic, and obsessed with preservation. Hi, cynical optimist. Thanks for being here. These Gothic descendants became the emperors of Rome, the architects of empire, and the keepers of Rh negative trait, right? Because they had the Rh negative trait, both positive and negative. But every time they created a bottleneck from trying to preserve their bloodline, all they preserved was Rh negative, okay? Power alone has never been enough for these Gothic people. They needed a spiritual covering and they found it through a manufactured alliance. Out of the Turkic Khazar Empire, a new class rose, the Ashkenazi Zionists. Now, please don't make me do my my little preamble again. I will just suffice it to say that Zionists and elitists, regardless of who they are, it's not everyone. It's not all people. It's not everyone, because these elitists hurt everybody. Okay. Genetically, they were distinct from the Hebrews of old because they adopted Judaism. They merged with Gothic bloodlines, and they laid claim to the title of chosen without having the blood lineage. By the 19th century, they were the bankers, the media owners, the global brokers. And I realize that there is some difficulty with saying that because that was Hitler's rhetoric, but I will show you how it was bait and switch. Okay. These people had one goal, Zion. But the world wouldn't give them Israel just yet. Not yet, right? So they needed a trauma so massive, so undeniable that global sympathy would demand their homeland. Okay? So they needed a night to piece this out. So let's talk about Hitler's affiliations, why he was chosen and initiated into this. So he was part of the Thule Society, Thule. It was founded in 1918 in Germany. It was a nationalist, anti-communist secret society. But beneath that, they were obsessed with Atlantis and Atlantean origins, Aryan blood purity, Hyperborean myth, and Neanderthal ancestry, because they believed that the Aryans and the Neanderthals were the same thing. And I agree with them. Okay. Now, here's where they diverge from what I say. They believed the Aryan Neanderthal race descended from gods and star beings from the heavens, right? And that Germany was the seat of ancient power. Yes, Germany has been the seat of the Neanderthal Aryan race. They ritualized their beliefs with symbolic magic, runes, and sacrifice. And many early Nazis were members or heavily influenced by the Thule Society, including Rudolf Hess and Heinrich Himmler. Okay, so I could end it right there. They told you they were Neanderthals and that Aryans were Neanderthals and that their bloodline purity stuff that they were talking about was about Neanderthals. So again, if you haven't watched my episodes on the Goths, please go back and do so, because this just is adding to it. Okay. Now, another society that Hitler was involved in was the Vril Society, VRIL Society. It was even more esoteric, and it was kind of a fringe offshoot of Thule. It was based on a novel called The Coming Race by Edward Bulwer Lytton, Lytton, which described an underground race powered by Vril, a type of universal energy. Now, if you've never looked at all of the tunnels and cities underground across the entire world, you might want to do that now. Get a little bit ahead of the game. They believed that Vril energy, if harnessed, could restore the original godlike race, often identified as Neanderthalic Aryan. They were alleged to have conducted channeling sessions with off-world intelligences and engaged in telepathic warfare, remote viewing, and energy manipulation. This is where I'm going to direct you to our Wednesday night talking about the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. Similar stuff. Okay. However, Hitler also had connections to the Jesuits. Okay. Although Hitler railed against organized religion publicly, right? He was educated in a Benedictine monastery as a child and said that he admired the ritual and the regalia. He modeled the Nazi SS on the Jesuit order in terms of discipline, hierarchy, loyalty, and secrecy. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, was obsessed with spiritual warfare, relics, and ancient bloodline authority because he got it from the Jesuits. And the Jesuits have a long history of acting as the spiritual enforcers for the Holy Roman Empire and later for the Black Pope nobility. Now, at some point, I may do a show on the Black Pope. Black doesn't mean race. It's actually the color black. You can look this up on Google. Who is the Jesuit Black Pope? And they'll tell you who he is. But nobody understands what's happening there. So sometime we might do that. I shouldn't say no one. It's not regularly known. Hi, Spain Man. He's on the 2 times now, catching up. Okay, so think of Hitler not just as this rogue dictator, right? But as a ritual agent executing a layered operation. Okay, so Operation World War II, right? We have mass bloodletting to activate this rights of territory. We need a homeland, we need protection, right? And usher in a new global paradigm through the UN, through Israel, through Cold War dualism. We have the Holocaust, which is human sacrifice of the Shemitic lines to consolidate the Ashkenazi Zionist spiritual power. Then we have the rise of Israel, which was the fulfillment of the elite prophecy under the false Jewish identity, the Ashkenazi Zionist Gothic hybrid. This is what's going on. We have the suppression of Sumerian artifacts, destroying memory of pre-flood bloodlines, and the King's List, that all of that threatens the Gothic Ashkenazi narrative. Now, extra credit if you can tell me when the 2 times there were 2 King's Lists that were stolen by Great Britain / the US. Give me the years. Give me the years. Aryan myth-making. This is the reposition of Neanderthalic bloodlines, the Goths, as the master race who are destined to rule. So what is some outward evidence of this hidden allegiance? We have the SS Black Sun symbol, right? That is not Christian. That is solar magic. We have the swastika, which is the inverted solar Aryan rune. Aryan rune, right? That's older than Hinduism. We have the Nazi Bell Project, the Dialog, possible time or energy technology that is rooted in those esoteric physics trying to harness Vril, okay? And their obsession with Antarctica, because they were searching for Hyperborea, the Atlantean tech, and inner Earth gateways to get to Vril. This is all what they're doing. Whether you believe that those things are real or not, it doesn't matter, because they did and do, okay? Under the veil of war, Hitler enacted the ritual, not to destroy all Jews, but to get rid of a bunch of that true Shemitic line, right? The spiritual Hebrews, the mystics, the dissenters, right? And this includes anybody who was a threat. Black people, Black people were some of the first to go, right? But again, they view Black people as having ties to ancient Mesopotamia and the origination of that bloodline. They view them as having knowledge, okay? Elite Zionists were, those who carried the ancient blood of Shem. So that also include any of Ham's line that were close. Now, again, they're Abrahamic, so they're talking about them in these bloodlines, okay? While the elite Zionists were evacuated, protected, and all of them were funneled into Palestine. They were not sent to the gas chambers. So on one hand, Hitler is saying, well, the Jews are in charge of the banking and the finances and the media, and he's doing all this propaganda. And then he takes those elite Zionists and evacuates them and funnels them into Palestine. Okay. Hi, Snowman. He says, sorry, I'm late for class. Let's go. Hi, Joe. Joe says, look at the Keepers 13th century, the whole group that printed the Bible, and they printed no other books until 60 years later. Oh, yeah. And I've talked about the Bible on this channel before, and we may get into it more, but I've talked about the Roman Catholic Church, and they're the ones who printed the Bible. Okay. And then the reprint was King James, who was Goth, but so is the Holy Roman Empire. So the Holocaust wasn't an extermination of Jews generically, obviously, because all the elite Zionists got funneled out. It was a purge of non-elite Jews, particularly those who had no royal or Ashkenazi ties, those who were opposed to Zionism or assimilation, those who were remnants of the Shemite Middle Eastern ancestral lines, those connected to the ancient Israelites and not to the Gothic Ashkenazi alliance, and any of the Ham lines. So, in essence, Hitler purged the non-Gothic Jews who threatened the legitimacy of the elite's chosen narrative. Adrian says, I would be curious to know whether the name, Nama, or Herero people of East Africa were a part of the Shem line. They wiped them out in World War I. The interesting thing is, and it's it is in the lineup. I'm going to circle back around and talk, now that I've put out all this information, talk about the bloodlines and who they are. And the interesting thing is that we're told that Shem's line are these Eastern European Jews, where Shem's line is more Igbo. It's more these Semitic people are not who we think they are. Well, some people already know, right? But when I circle back around to that, I'm going to look up the Nama and Herero people of Eastern Africa, because if they're Northeast Africa, then they probably are Shem's line, especially if they are Black African people. They are probably Shem's line. Okay. So Hitler's public role is the antagonist, right? He's painted as the ultimate anti-Jew. Yet, he only targeted non-elite Jews, religious traditionalist Jews opposed to Zionism, and Jews with Shemitic features and heritage, including Black people and Black people who were in Ham's line. He left alone all of the Rothschilds' assets. That family even funded part of the Nazi regime. Okay? He left alone the Zionist operatives and left alone the Jesuit-linked aristocrats. All of them got it left alone. It was not a genocide per se. It was a purge, a redrawing of the Jewish identity itself, a fusion of the Gothic and Khazar blood, now enshrined in this new land, this new homeland. Okay. The Zionist movement. Okay. Let's talk about this alliance. Okay. The Zionist movement was spearheaded by an elite Ashkenazi Jew, Theodor Herzl, with also Chaim Weizmann, and all of this had Rothschild's backings. Okay, Rothschilds were paying for this, the Zionist movement. These elites often had European royal ties. They shared Rh negative and Neanderthalic traits with the Gothic aristocracies, and they worked through the Freemasonic and the Jesuit channels. This is all the same folks, guys. Hitler's actions, driving Jews from Europe and terrifying the world into accepting a Jewish state, served the Zionist agenda perfectly. Okay. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 is the British handover of Palestine and the post-World War II UN approval of Israel, a Gothic Zionist coordination. This was a coordinated reset. Ethnically cleanse Europe of Shemitic Jews, give the Gothic Ashkenazi alliance a plausible cover, and solidify power in the Middle East. That purge that killed millions of people was a power play. So when I say they don't care about you, they don't care about you. They don't care about anybody. So Hitler was Gothic. He said he was Neanderthal. Okay. So, which, same thing. Okay. Hitler was Gothic. He was playing his archetypal role as the enforcer of bloodline purity, which included purging the system of impurities, right? Including non-cooperative Jews. Note the pattern. Okay. Hitler also destroyed the Roma people, dissidents, Slavs, Africans, and others outside the elite approved genetic pool, the Aryan Neanderthals. Okay. He was likely a pawn of the Jesuit Zionist Gothic orchestration, creating the trauma narrative that would justify eternal Zionist protectionism, i.e., Israel as a necessity, not an option. Okay? Now, I keep bringing up the Jesuits. The Jesuits, the keepers of the Holy Roman Empire's secret hand, that's what they're called, the secret hand, watched closely. And when the ritual was complete, they made sure that their knight was buried and his secrets preserved. The Jesuits came in and took the stuff. Through the rat lines, the high-ranking Nazis escaped to South America and to the United States. They were protected. When they got there, who protected them? The Catholic bishops. And who funded it? The Ashkenazi banks. They were absorbed into new Gothic-aligned projects. And the church paid for it, and the Jesuits carried it out. The world believed Hitler was defeated, but the real victory belonged to those who placed him. A new Israel rose, the Gothic Ashkenazi in origin, pretending now to be Shemitic. And I'm saying Shemitic on purpose, Shem's line, right? Pretending to be Semitic and Shemitic. Okay. So they were Gothic Ashkenaz in origin, pretending to be Semitic. Okay. Identity theft with this identity firewall. The Ashkenazi elites inherited the victim identity, even though they were all funneled out and protected to go to Palestine to start new Israel, right? But they inherited this victim identity of everybody that they helped to wipe out. They were part of the architecture of this, okay? The real Shemitic Hebrews were pushed into the margins, the Ethiopians, the African Americans, all of them. The story flipped somehow. The Gothic Zionist hybrids became the chosen, while the true descendants of Shem were erased from the historical record altogether. Adrian says, and they are ethnically cleansing Argentina as a result. Everywhere they've gone, guys, everywhere they've gone, it is the same playbook over and over and over and over and over. Okay, the UN was formed and the Cold War split the world right after that. And the trauma of the Holocaust became sacred, unquestionable, forever shielding the Zionist agenda. The identity firewall was set. This was the realignment. The bloodlines were secured, the opposition was erased, and the world bound by a ritual that it didn't even know happened. So, in the aftermath, who benefited? Let me do another slide here. In the aftermath, who benefited? The Ashkenazi elites, particularly those with Gothic ties, gained a homeland, financial reparations, and global untouchability. The Jesuits and the Vatican regained a foothold in Middle Eastern prophecy as they now had a timeline catalyst for Armageddon ideologies. Did you know that the Vatican actually is a landholder in Israel? The Gothic nobility erased competing Shemitic lines, rewrote history once more, and played both the victim and the savior again. Remember, he didn't touch the Jesuit order. He didn't touch the Vatican banking system. He didn't touch the Rothschilds banking dynasty. And he didn't touch the Zionist migration councils. Who lost? So if that's who benefited, who lost? The true Hebrew lines, Shem's descendants, were scattered, erased, killed, delegitimized. The non-elite Jews were sacrificial lambs to that elite cause. And global populations have been fed a narrative so sacred it cannot be questioned, even when it enables endless war, surveillance, and manipulation. The Zionist agenda that we can't even talk about anymore. So, history calls him a villain. But in the eyes of the global elites, he was their greatest servant, the knight who delivered the sacrifice, who redrew the world, and who vanished, leaving that ritual complete. So, what do you think, guys? We're exposing more and more and more and more, and I'm going to continue to expose more and more. So, next Sunday, we're going to start something called Under the Dominion. And that has to do a lot with the religious geopolitical plays that they use. This is next week is going to be a part 1 in a multi-part series, documentary style, that we're going to start. This Wednesday, we're going to continue with the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch breakdown. And so if you can't join us on Wednesday, I sure hope that you can be here next Sunday. If you have questions, put them in the comments. Shout out to the replay gang and those watching from the clouds, and to the very best live tribe on YouTube right here on this channel. I'm going to show you guys a picture of my dog. But before I forget, I love you, I miss you, and you're my favorite. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together. Bye.